It's an honor for us to be at Hacktivity this year. This is a conference where we always wish to come. Gabriel and myself, we come from Romania, from Bucharest. Thank you for this opportunity. We're going to tell you a story about how we hacked a car today, essentially, about how we hacked Gabriel's car. But before we start, I just want to ask you, how many of you have cars or drive cars on a, okay? How many of you have cars who are smart? Okay, 2 hands. Are those cars smarter than you, do you think? Probably, right? Yeah, that's the world we live in nowadays. So, smart car forensics and vehicle weaponization. This is the title of our talk today. But before we start, I just want to introduce ourselves to everyone. So, this is Gabriel. Gabriel used to be a game developer. He joined the security industry a couple of years ago. And he became quite popular in Romania for being the public transportation hacker. Because Gabriel, 2 years ago, he managed to create this electronic ticket for our public transportation system in Bucharest, with which he could have unlimited access to the transportation
unlimited
system.
Travel, you know, like an unlimited card, but not for your phone.
It was actually a nice story for the Romanian community because Gabriel responsibly disclosed this vulnerability to our local transportation authorities. They thanked him for that, and they actually fixed the bug in a quite timely manner.
Yeah.
So we were actually surprised by their answer. That's Gabriel. For myself, I used to do a lot of malware research and cyber espionage research in the past 10 years, so analyzing all sorts of APT. At one point, I decided I want to take a break and move over to the more, Internet of Things, car hacking area. But what I can tell you about myself is I really have a real passion for security. Like many people think that our job looks like that, like bored guys just sitting in front of their computer. But in reality, I'm sure all of you know the adrenaline rush that you get when you analyze some new malware or exploit, or you discover a new zero day. So I think it's a really cool job and a really cool industry we have and community. Just a quick shameless plug. If you're on Twitter, that's where we do everything. So please make sure to give us.
Follow me. I'm not a fake account. I promise.
Yeah, Gabriel's account looks like a fake account, so we're trying to fix that. But yeah, smart cars. Just to get us started, a little bit of an introduction to autonomous vehicles. Like, we went from the back days when we would use a horse and the carriage to where we are right now, where we have some sort of automation in our cars that we use. And we're heading to a future in which our cars will be fully automated and they'll be able to drive themselves while you're reading a newspaper, which is something, ironic, right? But yeah, I think, the automotive industry divides this evolution into several levels, from 0 to 5. Right now, we're something in between level 2 or 3, depending how sophisticated your car is. So you still manually drive it, but the car has some autonomous functions like smart city brake or, keeping the lane or following the car in front of you, especially for the newer models. But the main idea is that at one point or another, we're going to get to level 5, where the cars need to drive themselves fully. And in order to get to level 5, what the automotive industry is doing is starting to embed more and more smart devices in a computer, more smart devices in our cars. Like we used to say that our cars nowadays are essentially computers running on 4 wheels, but in reality a car doesn't have just one computer. A car has multiple computers that are all interconnected, and essentially if you manage to get into one of them, sooner or later you could totally pawn the car. So of course, this is why this area is very, very interesting. Now,
yeah, a lot of people have asked us in the past, why did you do that? So one of the main motivations behind that was the Charlie Miller hack that happened on the Jeep. I don't know, about
2014, if I remember right.
3 years ago, 4 years ago.
That was a big hack because after Charlie Miller and the other guy, John Valasak, hacked the Jeep, what Jeep had to do was to recall 100,000 cars, if I remember correctly. So that was a huge hit for them as a company, like as an automotive company having to recall thousands of cars, that's going to impact your profits, right?
So they basically managed to put a lot of pressure on the driver behind the wheel. So they turned out the wipers, they turned on the lights, and at some point they even managed to flood the engine or something like that. And that's a big security failure right there.
Essentially what we realized is that whenever a computer gets infected, we don't think of very bad consequences. I mean, yeah, sure, maybe you have to reinstall the operating system or do a disinfection routine, but nobody's life can get hurt in most of the cases with computer infection. But when we're talking about cars, we're talking about human lives which are at stake. And I think that we need to understand the problems that this industry have and solve them before something bad happens.
So let's get down to the details. I really like to tweak whatever devices I get my hands on. When I got my Android, I started flashing custom ROMs on it. When I got my car, I started trolling forums for ways to change my background or to, I don't know, just add a new app or something like that. So while digging around, I found some people who were actually able to gain SSH access to their car. And I said, yeah, why not? Let's see what we can do with that, what I can work out. So after digging around a little bit more, I found the specs for the motherboard of the infotainment system, which is basically just a Freescale processor, a random Linux distribution. It's got the GPS soldered on board. So you can't actually remove it, you can't disable it. It's always there, always receiving info from the satellites and, spoiler alert, logging your position.
Even if you didn't buy the navigation package, so the car has the GPS, it's just cheaper for them to ship all the boards the same.
1 gig of RAM, a Wi-Fi module, a Bluetooth module, and a revolutionary USB debugging technique that we're gonna go into. And using that USB trick, we decided to get into the car, put that SSH daemon of which we discovered a few slides back, and get in.
So we essentially divided our project into two parts. First part was we tried to do forensics on the car's infotainment system to see how much information an attacker would be able to extract if he would be able to have access to that infotainment system. And then the second part, the vehicle weaponization part, was when we tried to see what an attacker could do with the system of the car.
Yeah. So for getting in, we used the USB trick thingy. So remember the times when you inserted a CD in your drive and the autorun.inf would order a certain script to be executed, right? That's the same thing that's going on my car right now. So whenever I insert a stick, it looks for a certain file, and if it finds it there, then it's gonna execute that bash script. Yeah, and using that, I disabled IP tables because your car has a firewall. Why the hell not, you know? Yeah, we run SSHD, and we just got in. We could log in with some dummy credentials that we found out from some service guys. And we started exploring the file system. And while digging around, I found some .sql files. Those are basically just SQL dumps of a certain database. And when the file name is contacts.sql, this is what you find. Those are the names of my contacts, and if you scroll a little bit to the right, you're gonna find the phone number as well. And looking around the file system, I found another SQL file which contained all of my call history. And that's how I found that I should be calling my girlfriend way less often. And my mom, yeah, let's not forget about my mom. Digging around a little bit more, I found this. Does it look familiar to you? Can anybody guess what it is? Yeah, it's a list of addresses. So my GPS was logging my favorite point A's and correlating them with my favorite point B's and making a list of routes to help me just to punch in the destination more easily, while also leaking a lot of data. This is just a strings dump that I did on that binary blob. So no encryption whatsoever. The SQL files, again, were not encrypted. We also found the voice profiles, a lot of info about how I was basically trying to use the voice control in my car, vehicle status, how aggressive I would be driving and stuff like that, how much I would be braking, and a directory listing for my phone. So that basically means whenever I would be plugging in my phone in my USB port of my car, then the car would start crawling the file system and indexing any media files it would find, even pictures. So for example, if I used Telegram, then it would index that I had a certain downloads folder in my Telegram folder, and yeah, whoever would have access to it will also know what attacks to use against my phone as well. And it's funny because we actually had this talk at a local conference in Romania, and some guy who actually worked on developing that came to me and basically confirmed this.
Yeah, the feeling that we got by doing this part, the forensics part on this infotainment system, was that these embedded systems in cars, they are developed by very good engineers, but they are engineers who never developed something that is connected. So for many, many years, these embedded systems worked very well as long as they were just inside the dashboard of the car without any kind of USB ports, internet connection, Wi-Fi, Bluetooth, all of these new things that we want and have. So at one point, I'm sure what happened in their company, like their managers came and said, hey guys, we need to connect these infotainment systems. So they just took whatever they had and they just added the connections, and this is why we are where we are. And actually, if you talk to people in the automotive industry, you'll realize that their production process is, a very long and very complex one. But about security, they only started thinking in the past 2 or 3 years. Some of the brands, I think they only start thinking about now. They are thinking about safety, things such as airbags, ABS, stabilization systems, but they never try to test their cars, with a community such as this one. So this brings me to our second part of the presentation, the vehicle weaponization part. And essentially, we tried to see what kind of attack scenario can we think of by just using the tools that were present on the car, so just by living off the land, because that was a full Unix box equivalent to a computer that we could use. So what we did was, by using the same SSH access that we talked to you before, we essentially deployed a script that would use cron for persistence to keep itself alive. And this script would use a binary that the developers left on the car to search for open Wi-Fis on the network, on the premises. We would also use the GPS module to constantly plot coordinates where the car is. And of course, whenever we could find an open Wi-Fi and connect to it, we would connect to our own server and upload this data, essentially achieving a situation in which the car is war driving by itself. The driver is just driving around town, and the car is plotting all of the Wi-Fi networks there.
And all of this is happening just by inserting a USB stick inside the car's USB port. That's it, nothing else, nothing more.
So we had to explain this to our managers, and it's much easier to draw a picture. It's worth 1,000 words. So this is the area where Gabriel lives. And those are like the Wi-Fi networks that were plotted by the car itself. Now, we wanted to do a live demo of this to show you exactly how it works. But we talked with the organizers of Hacktivity, and they told us it would be a little bit difficult to bring a car on the stage. So yeah, what we did was we recorded a video, which I hope works. Yeah, we don't need sound. It's just some engine sound. But essentially what we did, this is the dashboard of the car, and we made the car system show up a pop-up every time there's a new Wi-Fi network in the area that the car can connect to. By the way, this pop-up is made also by a binary that was left there by the developers. The binary is totally not used by the car, so it's there for development purposes. But still, it was there. Actually, this was the feeling that we got, that the car's infotainment system was was not a production-ready system. It was a development or staging system where they were hoping everything would be okay. So, sorry about the quality of the video. Our roads in Romania are not the smoothest. But yeah, this is our successful demo, so thank you very much.
I started presenting this kind of stuff to the media and starting raising awareness. And at one point, one of the reporters asked me, can you just put a pop-up in there that shows that you've got a ransomware for your car? And I was like, oh man, that's a really great idea. When you spend 20,000 euros on a car, then actually paying 500 euros just to make it work, again, it's not that much of a bad deal. You know, for your computer at home, you just wipe everything and that's that. But for your car, well, it's like a bargain, you know. You can even increase that sum to about 5,000 euros, you know. So these are the kind of threats that you expect to see more and more when it comes to cars, especially when you think that you've had Blueborn, the Bluetooth vulnerability in the last year that actually affected a lot of devices, and funnily enough, the car is not affected because the Bluetooth library is so old that it doesn't have the bug. Yeah, and I started digging around a little bit more. I considered, I don't know, breaking the can or making the car brake or stop or do some kind of funny stuff. But there's another approach that people have been missing in the last years. Why attack from the inside when you can just attack from the outside? After all, the CAN bus just pushes the data that it receives from the sensors to your car. If you find a way to break those sensors, and this is the exact same problems that some people are having right now on a forum that's dedicated to battle robots, basically. So robotics challenge. And somebody is trying to use an ultrasonic jammer in order to jam the ultrasonic signals from the distance sensors of his enemy's robot. And people kept discussing that. And it seems like this is actually doable. It can definitely be done. There's no issue with that. And you can make your car stop because of something called City Brake Smart Assist. So whenever my car would find something in front of it, it would just brake, and it wouldn't allow you to move any further until you have cleared the obstacle in front of you. And you can actually jam those ultrasonic sensors or the LiDAR, for example, in this specific example, with really cheap gear and make the car stop using its tracks. And
just to add, you know, in security, in this community, we always, whenever we see a new technology, we always think of ways to break it or ways to trick it. And I would like to see this attitude more and more in the engineers, classic engineers area or classic software development area. Because what's happening right now with the cars is we're putting so many sensors in them, but nobody's thinking of how easily those sensors can be manipulated. Everybody's testing the sensors only in real-world conditions without thinking of the fact that those real-world conditions could be simulated by an attacker to achieve a scenario in which the car stops when it shouldn't.
So what happens when you actually have to buy really expensive gear just to be able to do that? Because that's what those Chinese hackers did. They bought like $500,000 worth of equipment, which is mostly a signal generator to generate the radar reflection, and a mixer in order to up it up to 60 gigahertz or something like that. And yeah, it's really expensive to do it right now. They did it with Tesla. They had a lot of gear. Maybe this is available to a nation-state espionage campaign or something like that. But this is exactly what they said about SDR in the past. In order to do the same stuff that you do with a Blade RF or with a Hack RF, you had to have a whole cabinet of devices and interconnect them in order to finally get to decode something like a GSM signal or anything like that. But it's getting cheaper and cheaper, and we're going to see what the SDR was for radio waves. We're going to see the same for radar or for even other kind of RF shenanigans.
And our message here is that, you know, car hacking is not necessarily something very complicated, and it's not something expensive if you want to get yourself into that. It's actually a nice hobby. Of course, the risk is you can brick the car. Actually, when we did our experiment last year, we managed to brick Gabriel's infotainment system, but luckily the car was still in warranty, so we just went back to the dealership and told them, like, the lightning struck the car. They actually believed that. So yeah, I guess we were lucky. So there are some risks, but getting a Blade RF is a couple of $100, and you'd be surprised of how many things the automotive industry is overlooking right now if you look at the cars around you. So yeah, if you want to start car hacking, I encourage you to do that. Get in touch with us. We'd love to share, our opinions and our experiences. So just to wrap this up, a couple of conclusions that we took and wanted to share with you after this project. Our main worry here is that the automotive industry is not really thinking about the privacy of the drivers. Of course, when you're the only driver of your car, maybe you don't care that all of your personal data is left persistently and unencrypted on the car's infotainment system. But with things such as car sharing programs or corporate car fleets that are being shared by the employees inside a company, with these things becoming more and more popular, especially in North America and in Europe, I think that we really need to think more about our privacy, because how many of us actually think that when we connect our phone with Bluetooth to a rented car just to listen to our favorite songs, then all of our data is being extracted from the phone, saved in the car, and left there for the next driver to access it. So I think that the automotive industry should address these issues. Now, of course, this is something not new for us in the security world. We always know that whenever there's a new technology coming up, new ways in which that technology can be attacked or in which that technology can be abused are also showing up. The thing is, we want to evolve, and we want to evolve in a secure way. And actually, while discussing this project with some people, we got this idea, like the automotive industry has a very good history and track record when it comes to physical safety. So whenever you buy a car, it comes pre-equipped with all the best safety measures. Like it comes pre-equipped with ABS, with airbags, with seat belts. It's not like with a computer, when you buy your computer and then you go and buy an antivirus and the firewall and install it. The car just comes with everything pre-equipped. And the industry actually has a very good way of regulating itself. We have crash tests that can test the safety of the cars. So why wouldn't we have cyber crash tests for cars? Why wouldn't we evaluate as an industry in a very transparent and open way how secure are different info systems? I mean, I would love to take that factor into account when deciding what new car to buy. And lastly, before we end, I just want to brag a little, but it's a story that I think you need to know. We got some pretty good media coverage from this project. So first, there were like security publications that wrote about our hack, places such as Motherboard or Decipher or The Register, which are really good news sources for the InfoSec community. But we realized that inside information security, we're all living in a bubble, because we all agree with each other that everything can be hacked and that everything is vulnerable, and whenever there's a new vulnerability showing up and a new hack showing up, we congratulate each other and we pat ourselves on the back. But this knowledge and these messages rarely leave our echo chamber, rarely leave our bubble. So this is why we were quite happy when Forbes decided to do a piece about our hack, because Forbes has a more mainstream audience, so we're trying to break the security bubble. And then we became even more happier when some car magazines, such as Car Buzz and Drive Mag, decided to do an interview with us and write about this hack. Because I think that there's a big division between the security industry and the automotive industry, and we like to talk about these things at security conferences, but I'm not sure how many automotive engineers or people are here. Is there anyone who works with cars in this room? Okay, I think I see 2 or 3 hands. So yeah, I think we should do presentations like this and projects like these also in places where it's not just about security, like for example at auto shows or trade shows for the automotive industry, and just generally try to break out of our security bubble, because that's where these messages need to go to the whole world and to the whole industry. So with this being said, I'd like to thank you very much for paying attention, And if there's any questions, this is what we're here for. So, yes or no? Thank you.